I've been anxious all day. I've been anxious all day, kind of being like, right, make sure that I got my stats ready. I've got everything ready that I need to, just to make sure, because obviously I do think that these kind of podcasts are very important because everyone now is like, I'm so confused. So anything we say, obviously, I want to make sure it's correct. So I want to make sure that, we know what we're talking about anyway, but you know what I mean, just to make sure everything's
Yeah, definitely.
where it needs to be. Do you want me to do an intro?
We haven't even worked on an intro.
Yeah. I'm like, do
We
you
need
want
to
me to
get
do an
some. We need to
intro?
get some like training footage together and like make it like super hype, and that'll be like the
Yeah.
20-second intro video every
Yeah,
episode.
that'll be the intro. We need to get a little jingle going on and everything as
Yeah,
well.
perfect.
I literally, oh God, that's so funny. Yeah. Well, I mean, hello everyone, and welcome to Stage Talk
Stage talk.
podcast. I'm excited because I haven't done like a podcast or anything for a very, very long time, and it's just very exciting to kind of do something like this again, especially specifically for what we're kind of wanting to put out there and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I'm very
Yeah,
excited. Do you want to
I'm
introduce
excited too.
yourself?
Hello everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Corey. I train a lot of athletes in this industry, primarily in the bikini realm. And Phoebe and I have been discussing doing this for a week or two now, and we've talked every single day for hours a day, trying to nail down exactly how we want this to be and everything. So I think we're just here to bring you guys a lot that has to do with a little more deep dive into the education and knowledge behind bikini, what's to come with fit model, maybe do a little bit of touch on wellness here and there when there's some big shows coming
Mhm.
up. But
I'm excited because I think that would be really fun to cover. And later on down the line, like I think we discussed this anyway, we'll be able to kind of speak about more just the women's division in general, because I know you have figure girls, you've got wellness girls. What would you say you might primarily have? Do you feel like you have more bikini or wellness or figure?
probably 80% bikini.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You have quite a lot of different variety though.
Yes. Yeah. I
Yeah.
have, I mean, throughout the entire roster that I train, I have a couple women's bodybuilders, I have a couple women's physique, probably 5 or 6 figure. I have 2 fit model pros that I turned pro this year. And then bikini and wellness is the majority.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like the most popular divisions, I think, out of the women
Yeah.
categories
Yeah.
anyway, to
Definitely.
be fair. So that makes
Definitely.
sense.
Say with what you just said, it's kind of a reason we're doing this is bikini is one of the most popular divisions through the NPC and IFBB. They pack the stage with the most people, but usually have the least amount of like notoriety behind them. There's not a whole lot of deep diving into who these girls are. And like that's why I know so many people loved what you did for the Olympia, touching on all 70 people. And so it's nice to get that actual like perspective out there of who is this person, where do they come from, what shows did they win, like what's their background, and be able to do that on a continuous basis now. So
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it is hard because, and it's hard to keep up with everyone because there are so many people. Like, there were
yeah,
so many people that I didn't even know when I did that recap or kind of like run through. I hadn't heard of a lot of people. And it was interesting for me to just see, okay, there's some really good athletes here, but we just don't know them because they're from a different country or they're not in America or elsewhere. So like it's just nice to be able to know the division as a whole just more and see who else is, doing it. Because honestly, there was so many competitive people throughout the whole Olympia, I think. Like, and we'll get
yeah,
into that obviously later anyway, but I think there was some really, really good competitors, people in fifth call out, sixth call outs, like they still looked absolutely incredible regardless, like
oh
where
yeah.
they placed and stuff. So I'm excited to kind of break it down and stuff like that. But so yeah, my name's Phoebe. Hi, hello. I'm from the UK. I've been a bodybuilder now for, or bikini bodybuilder now for the last 10 years. 2026 will be my 10th year competing. So that's exciting. I've done over 45 shows in general in that time frame. So I feel like I have, a little bit of knowledge to me. And I definitely want to kind of push out there a little bit more and give you guys my kind of, opinions and break things down a little bit more. It's always been something that I've wanted to do. And I have been kind of doing it a little bit here and there, but I want to do it especially more now. Definitely with you, obviously you on the podcast and stuff. So It's funny how we literally set this up in a week because I
Yeah.
was thinking about doing this, and then I just messaged you and you were like, should we just start a podcast? And I was like, actually, that sounds pretty good. So yeah, I'm down for that. So it
Yeah.
just happened like that. It wasn't months in the making or anything like that. It was just, do you want to do a
Yeah.
podcast? Yes, cool, sweet.
And
We'll do that.
I feel like for the audience, being able to bring the perspectives of someone who's placed as high as seventh at the Olympia,
Yes.
all the way to like all the shows you've done, all the shows that you've won. And then I've been in the industry training for 8 years now and had 6 girls on the Olympia stage this year. So
That's cool.
being able to bring those perspectives together and talk about deciphering judging criteria to what we're seeing on in the top 5 at this show and who to look for going into this show as the show like rosters release. Like there's a lot of like in-depth perspective we can give, especially knowing a lot of these people personally too.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I think we can later on down the line definitely kind of even get these girls on the
Yeah,
podcast, speak about their journey, and like again, just push things out there more. Because I do think that this year, more than anything, yes, there was hype around the women's divisions, but not as much. I mean, it's never as much as the men, I do feel, and that's also absolutely fine. But I do think that we need to try and bring up the ante. So, for example, the prize money and help the women's divisions kind of be seen more. It needs to be talked about more. There needs to be more fans. There needs to be people excited about it more. There is a very, very large amount of people, but you forget how small the actual world of bodybuilding is. Like
yeah,
when you talk to a normal human, a normal person, and they're like, "Oh, you do bodybuilding?" They're like, "How long have you been lifting? Like, what do you do?" They have no clue. They have
yeah,
no clue about the scale that we have and what we do. So I think if we could kind of get it more talked about, especially the women's divisions, then there can be more change, which is exactly why we're here. So
yeah.
I'm excited, very excited. Okay, should we just dive right in?
Let's dive into what everyone is waiting to hear from us about that we've gotten
Yeah.
100 something DMs apiece about. So
Like so many people, like, because obviously I wasn't there. I watched the live stream, which I will say, like, before we get started, the live stream was very good. I very much liked it, but people always have to remember live streams to seeing it in real life is going to be so different, so different. So I'm excited to see your perspective as well, because you were obviously there and I wasn't. So I only go off. I mean, I still kind of, got the idea and understand things anyway from what I saw pictures wise and all that type of thing. But I would love to hear and see what your perspective is because you're obviously there as well.
definitely.
So I'm excited. What do you want to start off with? Do you want to just go straight into the pictures?
Yeah, let's go straight into the pictures. Yeah,
Cool. Can you see my screen?
excellent. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Right.
So
So this is the top 5.
it's a good top 5. It's a really good top 5.
Yeah.
First thing I see here, my eye is drawn to, and this is me personally, my eye is drawn to Jazzy's front pose and Amy's front pose.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the overall flow and balance of a front pose, I feel like, and again, Maureen is someone who can come in a little bit softer than the rest, and is able to still nail the criteria by being softer. So I want to put a quick like note on that for everyone listening. And I've seen all the Reddit posts and some other coaches and fans making their own videos about this and how this wasn't what was rewarded all year. I'm going to start with touching on that really quick before looking at the girls, because the main thing is judges can only judge what's in front of them. And we didn't have a Laura Lee or a Maureen compete all year long. And so we didn't have anyone that usually looks good a little bit softer compete all year. Most girls are going to come in if they're a little bit softer and it's going to throw off their whole look. Whereas Maureen is known to be a little bit softer. When she won the Olympia, she was one of the softest in the entire lineup. And so, her first Olympia, including this one. And so when it comes down to it, criteria for bikini looks different on everybody. Some people can be a little bit harder and they flow better. Some people can be a little bit softer and they nail it. Maureen is one of those where even a little bit softer, she, especially when we get to the back pose, you can see how even a little bit softer, she nails bikini criteria top to bottom, symmetrically, proportionately. And the number one thing that Tyler always says in judging feedback, in the videos he makes, is the word balance. And Maureen was top to bottom the most balanced person in this show, especially in the back pose. And so
Hmm.
now, speaking on the front pose here with all five of them, where my eye is drawn immediately is Jazzy and Amy, just because of like how proportionate and balanced, and they just have that kind of wow factor in their front pose. Like
Hmm.
looking at that side glute profile, how great their waist is, the overall just the S curve that isn't too exaggerated. That's where my eye is drawn in the front pose.
Yeah, I everything you just said, 100% agree. Like, and I specifically want to touch on what you said about Maureen having the most kind of like you look at her as the whole thing versus it being like, oh, her glutes look good, or oh, her V taper looks great, or her waist is this, like you look at everything as a whole, which is exactly what bikini is supposed to be. And I think that sometimes gets ran away from us a little bit, and I know it has done in terms of when we see specific people on stage or anything like that. And I think we have to remember the criteria and remember what it needs to stay like, and stuff like that. I agree. Probably my favorite front pose, just because I love her shape specifically, is Amy's. Like, I think I texted you when I said Amy came out and I said this looks really good. Like, it looks very promising. This was obviously before kind of call outs and stuff like that, but I really liked Amy's shape a lot. Like, she has a really nice like curve to her. Same with Jazzy. She's the exact same. They're kind of both similar in that sense, to be fair. My one thing I think about Ashlyn, and this is just coming from a posing standpoint from me, from what I kind of see, is that I think her upper body still needs to maybe be a tad, not, I don't know if it's bigger, or to pose it slightly, very, very slightly bigger, because my eye gets drawn to her glutes and her waist
Yeah.
versus the whole. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and not, and I'm excited to see what Tyler's recap video looks like, because my opinion on the difference between Maureen and Ashlyn, and when we get to the back pose, I'll touch on this on how I feel Maureen was a drop dead winner easily from the back. I don't want to say easily, but every single person that I was sitting around, so I'll give an in person perspective here. I was sitting around Victoria and Uliana and James and the Atlas team, and when Maureen turned around, every single person in my entire section, which was center stage, 7 rows back from the judges, Maureen turned around and everyone went, "Yeah, she won." So that's how almost obvious it was in person when she turned around. But looking at the front pose here, I totally agree with you with Ashlyn. And then when we get to the back pose of it, which we'll get to in a sec, it you can speak more from a posing perspective, but it's almost like she pinches really hard in the upper back, and it draws
Yes.
her traps up, and it kind of takes away from the overall flow and balance of the back pose. And I think that's why Maureen stood out so much just next to her, because
Hmm.
Maureen sits in it so naturally, and it just creates the perfect flow from the back.
Yeah, like yeah, we'll touch on the back rows and stuff like that in a second for sure. I think, what would you say about Ashley's front pose compared to this top four?
So I don't think there's a lot wrong with Ashley's front pose, but I do think that a little bit of like historical bias comes into play when you know what someone's best has looked like. And
Hmm.
this was not Ashley's best front pose.
Okay.
And I think we have a side by side of that where I don't remember if it was last Olympia or one of her previous shows. You can see the visual difference in her, in how much she's turning her torso and how she's sitting into her hip. And in this
Yeah.
Olympia, she made her waist look thicker, and she posed herself out of the higher placing.
Yeah, I think she usually, I don't know if I did I put that up. She usually does pose a little bit more twisted to the side. And I think this one she was a little bit more open, and like you said, not being 100% where she needed to be, because usually her core is tighter. Because I think from what
Yeah,
I saw as well online, I could see that her waistline kind of wasn't 100% kind of like how it usually is. Like, when you're super tight and like almost like it's like you're cellophane wrapped, like it just everything's like proper tight. It did, from what I think anyway, it didn't look 100% like that on the live stream from what I could see. Again, I don't know if it was like whatever, whether it was condition or if it was, you know, difference in conditioning and stuff like that. But I do think that she's come in tighter. And I think at this level, I think it's so hard because the judges see these girls, they see them kind of constantly throughout the year, but they know their best. And I
Yeah.
think when they see them slightly off, they know it's off, you know? And I think I don't even think it's just like with the top five, but I think it's just in general in pro shows. I think that's the difference between obviously amateurs and professionals and stuff like that. Like there's been so many shows where, you know, I competed in and, you know, Bill, head judge, has been like, this isn't your best. I've seen you at your best. And he hasn't seen me like all year, but he's seen me from like 2023 to 2024. He's like, that was better. You know, like he
Yeah.
knows because he's seen me compete multiple times. So the judges know what they want to see from these girls or what they expect to see from these girls. So when they don't 100% come in, obviously it is a little bit tough. But I do think that this Olympia probably was, I think probably one of the hardest because of how long it was. So obviously
Yeah.
you've got, I don't know what time they actually started. I watched the live streams for 6.5 hours on Saturday. 6.5 hours because I watched Men's Physique, I watched a classic, and then
You
at,
watched that? Yeah, that was like the middle of the night for you. You're watching it through the whole night.
I bikini finished at 2:45 at night for me. And I was up at 5 a.m. or yeah, 5 a.m. my time, 5:30 my time to go and train glutes and to watch bikini
Yeah,
finals.
I remember you texted me when you were going to bed and you were done watching it, and then it was only like 3 hours later you were texting me, "Good morning, how's the rest of the show going?"
Literally, I'm like, oh my God. Like it's just timing's just not the greatest, but it's fine. Like I'll make it work. It's fine.
Yeah,
But I do think that that's another challenge that the girls probably had to face is basically like trying to figure out how they can bring their best in 2 hours time. Because obviously there was
yeah,
so many people. So you've got the comparisons, then you've got the individuals, then you've got the actual, and this was probably one of the longest, if I'm not mistaken, one of the longest call outs I think I've ever, like, I don't think 2024 was that long in terms of
I don't think so.
first call outs. Like they were moving those girls. I think one
Oh
when
yeah,
they turned Maureen to the back, or everyone, sorry, everyone to the back, turned to the front. They did a lot of switches because Jazzy was next to Maureen for a very long time, which we'll go through
yeah,
call outs and stuff like that in a minute. But Jazzy was next to Maureen for a very long time, and then they kind of swapped out and put Ashlyn next to her for a very long time as well. So I do think that it is hard, like to do that for 2 hours straight or bring your best for 2 hours straight. So completely props to all the girls that went up there and absolutely killed it regardless, you know? So I think that's great.
yep.
Do you want to have a look at the
I
back
will say
poses?
too. Let's go to the back poses. I also don't think that this was anyone's 100%. I think Amy
Okay.
looks the best she ever has at Pittsburgh this year. I
Yeah,
think if
I
she had
agree.
come in, if Amy had come in like she did at Pittsburgh, and Jazzy came in like she did at finals of the Olympia, like this
Hmm.
finals, the two of them would have been fighting 1 and 2. I feel like because Jazzy
Interesting.
at the night show was unreal. And Amy, her Pittsburgh look was one of the best bikini showings I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So I think that those were they just weren't at like 100% their best. Obviously, them not 100% their best still places top 3 and 4 in the world. But
Hmm.
I do think that finals Jazzy and Pittsburgh Amy would be very, very dominant.
Yeah. And I think it's always, that's also another thing to take into account is that like the lighting is so different. So peaking on two different stages, not I say peaking on two different stages, but kind of perspectives of two different stages. Like the night show is obviously a lot darker. There's better lighting. So it's it's not easier to look better, but it also brings out more. I don't know if it brings out more detail. Would you agree?
It can definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
But you also have the potential of it going into the night, and how is the coach gonna like decipher what they saw in prejudging? Are they gonna fill you
Yeah.
out more? They're gonna try to like keep it steady throughout. So there's still a lot that goes into play on being better or worse at night, on top of knowing it's an entire different stage with different lighting. So
Very true. Yeah. I mean, the main thing that everyone keeps saying is that Maureen was soft from the back. And I do think, again, comes down to the live stream. The live stream was actually very good. And I didn't see it being too soft. I think when I saw pictures online, though, it kind of justified it in my head a little bit more because I
Mm-hmm.
think the online photos kind of were a bit clearer. I could see more of what everyone else was seeing like that in person, for example. So like the pictures versus the video online. But I think it's like when I look at all these back poses, again, what like we said before, Maureen has the most balance out of
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
And I like
And
Jazzy's back pose as well. Like I think I think that's why potentially they were compared for quite a while because I do think
mhm.
that their back poses are very similar. Um, what would you say with that?
So I'm going to touch on Maureen for a second on this. And I don't, again, I didn't have anyone in the top five. I had one in the top 10. I didn't have anyone against these five. So I'm saying this as unbiased as I possibly can. Maureen, anyone saying that she was too soft, I don't know what they're looking at. Soft, yes, because Maureen is good soft. She doesn't come in hard. She never has. She wasn't hard when she won the Olympia 3 years ago. Um, so looking at Maureen's picture right here, those are tie-ins. Like the lower glute into the hamstring there, Maureen's genetics, she just doesn't have that point that they come to. That's not something that she can change, but you can see on Maureen right there, look at the difference in, or the delineation between her lower glute to her adductor up and down to her hamstring and then into her like mid glute there. You can see the separation in all of that. Look over at Jazzy here. Nobody's saying that Jazzy was too soft, but yet you can see more of Maureen's adductors and lower glute than you can of Jazzy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just it's people are being, I think, a little bit overcritical on Maureen. I think because of her front pose, because it wasn't the best we have seen in terms of her front pose. But when she
Mm-hmm.
turns to the back and you put these girls side by side by side, one, I think that Ashlyn, I think that she might have posed herself out of a little bit better comparison next to Maureen.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's standing too wide here, and I think she's
Yeah.
pinching too much in the upper back. So
Yeah,
I
I
think those
agree.
things might have kind of posed her out of a better comparison against Maureen. But when you look at the actual, like speaking of soft and conditioning, when you look at everyone side by side, yes, Ashlyn's probably the hardest out of these five right here. But now you
Mm-hmm.
look at the other four, Maureen is not much softer than them when you look at body part for body part. And then to preface that or to expand on that more, when it comes to bikini judging, you don't look at body part for body part. You look at the whole package. I'm not looking here and going, okay, so Maureen wins on rear delts, but Ashlyn's waist, but Jazzy's glutes. You
Yeah.
look at the whole package. Who, and like I said, the number one thing Tyler stresses is balance. And who has the most balance here? Maureen is literally the perfect figurine and silhouette of a back pose ever right here. It's
Yeah.
insane how much like her upper outer glute has so much pop to it. And I'm not talking density because density is relative to the person. It's relative to the person's body type and what amount of density looks best on each individual. Maureen might not
Mm-hmm.
have the densest, biggest glutes up there, but they match her body. You don't
Yeah.
need to have the most projecting biggest glutes on stage. It's not a glute competition. So balance is the number one thing that Tyler always stresses. And when you look at Maureen's upper outer glutes and how just like I don't want to use the word projecting on it, but just how like the curvature of it, it comes out so much that it almost has to dip back in and
Yeah.
creates that much more of that silhouette, that perfect bikini silhouette from the back, from the rear delts down the lats to the waist, expanding out at those glutes, and then it comes down into a literal perfect lower body for her. Like, is she the most conditioned? No, but she doesn't need to be. I see every bit of detail there that I need to, and honestly, almost see a little bit too much adductor. You don't want to have a lot of adductor in bikini,
I
and
was gonna say that.
especially yeah, but she still is conditioned enough that you see that. If she was too soft, you wouldn't see shit with that.
Yeah.
So anyone saying that she's not hard enough or it throws them off because all year long they've been judged hard, like, yeah, it's not like the rest of the girls weren't hard. Look at Ashlyn. Ashlyn looks
Yeah.
like Ashlyn here, a really good Ashlyn. And she got
Mm-hmm.
second in the world and she's conditioned and hard. Now,
Yeah.
Maureen, less conditioned, but just a better back pose, a better overall posed bikini back pose.
Yeah. Claps to that. 100% because I do think that again, people get ran away with kind of what they want to see or what they expect to see. So when they say, we want to see glute ham tie-ins. Like, yes, we want to see glute ham tie-ins, but that doesn't mean etched in all the time. That doesn't always necessarily mean conditioned to the person. And I like how you like specifically said that, to the person, because again, going back to what we were saying earlier, these judges know what these girls, their best looks like, and what they want to see from these girls. So like, for example, Maureen at Pittsburgh was off slightly. She was more like slightly softer than what she was here, and that's why she didn't win that show. And I think there was a few people kind of saying like, well, Amy won, and then Ashlyn got second, and then obviously Maureen. So how is now Maureen beating these girls? It doesn't matter if they beat them back literally 5 months ago. Like, it
Yeah,
matters what happens literally right there in front of them now. If this was the case, Laura Lee would have won, because she won last year. Like,
yeah,
that doesn't,
exactly.
she hasn't
I mean,
competed all year, but she beat
yeah,
everyone last year. So like, that has no relevance to
I
now
say all the
at all.
time, bikini is the biggest swinging pendulum out of every division.
Hmm.
Like when you look at just this year alone, Jazzy lost to Amy at the Arnold by three
Yeah.
placings, and now she came back and beat her. Yeah, I mean, Vanya won, and Vanya was down in eighth place. So
Hmm.
there's your swinging pendulum of bikini. And was it Vanya's best? No, she. I trained Vanya, and she has a back injury going into this, but she persevered through it, and that's why you see her front pose a little bit off in like how she would
Yeah.
normally have that like literal perfect front pose that Vanya has. She's known for her posing, but she pushed through it and still ended up in the top 10. But that's the pendulum of bikini, is the littlest things are differentiating each one of these competitors. And
100%.
when we're looking at this back pose, I think that Amy and Ashley obviously have the densest glutes on stage.
100%.
When they do their walk to the back, it is high and tight and round and projecting. They are
Yeah.
flawless. But when we're sitting in a back pose and how it is posed overall, my eye, even just looking at these pictures, which are just like snap and shoot and post online pictures. There's nothing like crazy done to these photos. My eye is still drawn to Maureen. And
Yeah.
if no one's getting behind that, I shouldn't say no one, but if a lot of people find that controversial, I don't know what else like I can break down about Maureen's back pose, because it is literally the perfect back pose. There's
And
every bit of the shape to this is 100,000% balance.
yeah. And speaking from a posing perspective as well, like with bikini, I mean, with most women categories, I mean, probably wellness, fit model, and bikini, I would have thought. The posing needs to, we know the posing, we're probably flexing, we're doing things, it's uncomfortable. But to the judge's eye, it needs to look relaxed. It needs to look
Yeah,
natural. It needs to look like you're not doing shit, really. Like, it may not feel like that. Like, I know personally, like, I've come off stage and my back has been broken because of, posing is hard. We have to arch a lot. We have to kind of flare certain things. We have to do specifics to show off that shape, but it needs to look relaxed. We can't look like we're flaring or pushing back, and Sandy will always say that she hates, seeing when a pose looks like you're trying to pose, which sounds really silly, but when I look at Maureen's back pose, it's relaxed. Like, it's not actually physically relaxed. She's obviously posing, she's, arching the back and, flaring the upper body and stuff like that, but it doesn't look like she's trying to do that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So, and that's the whole point. I think, like you mentioned before, where Ashton kind of falls just a little bit, is she does look like she's pulling back. So she does
yeah,
lose. And if you look at her hand placement, her hands are a little bit more on the side of her.
yep,
So you see the difference between, this is what I always try and like look at, and hand positioning, just for anyone that kind of looking at a posing perspective. I try and always have a diagonal kind of form for the forearm to kind of showcase off this outside glute a little bit better. Whereas Ashen kind of doesn't have that here anyway. It could just be also the camera angle, so I'm not too 100% sure. But if she had that hand in just a little bit, that, in my opinion, would showcase off more of her upper glute a little bit better. So her forearms kind of come out diagonally. So again, it's about perspective, and it's how you manipulate the pose to showcase off your best. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yep.
And I think, again, Maureen just hits that completely. Probably, it definitely is the best back pose here. I think second to that, I think
Amy
the
or
way,
Jazzy?
yeah, this is what I was thinking. I like how they've hit the back pose, how they're hitting the pose specifically. I like, um, I would say Jazzy's probably more, a little bit more than Amy's. I think Amy has her hands just a tad high here, and I
Yeah.
would love to see them just a tiny, tiny little bit lower because it looks a little bit has too much gap in between the waistline here.
Yep.
Um,
And there's a lot of things for people listening to consider. And anytime people watch shows, is again, I've seen a couple people do their own reviews on this stuff, and they zoom in on body parts.
yeah.
And that's not how it's judged. Because yeah, can I
Hmm.
zoom in on Ashlyn and Maureen's glutes and be like, yeah, Ashlyn's a little bit tighter, a little bit more projecting in the tie-ins there. Their glutes are very similar in just that upper outer density. But when I zoom out and then I look at the entire perspective as a whole, you look at the entire back pose as a whole, and you go, okay, Ashlyn's standing a little wide. It's making the sweeps of her quads flare out a little bit, and then you go, oh well, is she trying to do that on purpose because maybe she feels like she doesn't have full enough legs to compare to her glutes, and so she's exaggerating, pointing her toes out a little bit to give herself a little bit more density through the legs and make it look more balanced. But then by doing that, she's also messing with how we just said, with the upper back being pulled up a little bit. And there's just so much that goes into it, even from a posing perspective, where maybe if she did drop her hands a little bit, it might create a little bit more balance top to bottom. But is she a little bit too conditioned where if she pulled her hands down, she's going to striate her delts? So it's like there's every single one of those things comes into play. Matter of just, I mean, I know it's the Olympia, so she's second in the world. It's just a matter of like, what can I do that little 1% better for next time? Because all those things I just listed is where Maureen's beating her in the back pose.
Mm-hmm. 100%. 100%. I think, again, like you mentioned, you have to look at every body part, even in the front pose, even the back pose, even in the transitions. Like the transitions matter as well. Like everything massively matters. And I think we do get obsessed with shoulders or glutes or waistline and being like, oh, Maureen's waist wasn't as tight as Ashlyn's or, as tight as Jazzy's or whatever. But again, you have to look at the perspective of it and everything as a whole. So, like, not just the back pose. Like, Maureen, obviously, in my opinion, like we said, beats everyone in this back pose. And then, okay, let's have a look at the front pose. Who beats who on that? Then who beats them in the transition? Who do you know what I mean? Like it all adds up. It's not a case of, oh, whose glutes look the best or whose waistline is the smallest, like you said, from body part to body part. And I think that's what gets forgotten a little bit. Um, which is hard.
And we
It's
have
hard
to
to do.
remember, I say it's important to remember too, as a fan in the audience, as someone watching on, that you don't know what way the judges are going to tip the scale based on front versus back pose. Because did Maureen have the best front pose out of these five? Probably not. In the mix, but probably not the best. Then they turn to the back, and I think that that's where she just made up so much ground. Because when you're in the front pose, I looked at Maureen, and I was like, yeah, a little soft. Like she could be a little bit better in the front pose. She turned to the back, and I went, oh shit, okay. And that's where I feel like if I'm on the judging panel, they may have had that same reaction. She unanimously won. Nobody else got
Mhm.
a point on her. So I
Yeah.
feel like that was the same perspective on the judging panel, was when she turned around, she made up that entire gap that she may have lost a point or two on in the front pose. She turns to the back and it became unanimous because it was
Yeah.
just that glaringly obvious that she was the best from the back.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think again, I also do think that I wanted to bring this up anyway. I think a lot of people have mentioned, Ashley was robbed or Laura Lee was robbed or whatever. And I mean, this is my perspective. I don't know if obviously if people agree or not. I do think that we follow people's journeys so hard that we grow an attachment to the person versus um not saying that anything gets blurred or anything like that, but that's why it's very important to become like very biased, unbiased, sorry, versus it kind of having that kind of like little bias because you love their journey. So, for example, like Laura Lee and Ashley, for example, I know those are the main. The only reason I picked those is because a lot of people have been saying. I've seen Reddit as well, and Reddit is literally being like, Laura Lee and Ashley were robbed, or people were saying that they were robbed. And don't get me wrong, they still looked incredible. They still got top fit 5 and 6 in the world. And like that is a huge achievement in 71 athletes. Like that's incredible. But was it their best? No, I don't think so.
Exactly.
But I think that we do attach ourselves to their journey so much. Like I think Laura Lee is probably one of the most popular out of all of them because of how she shows her journey, how, you know, how she's online. She shares a lot of stuff. Same with Ashley. They're probably the most active online with YouTube and all that type of thing. So you know a lot about their journey from start to kind of finish and all that type of thing. And you grow an attachment to that. And I think a lot of people want so hardly to see them win. I'm not saying that they don't want to see anyone else win either, but I even saw a comment on one of Maureen's videos, which I was like, is this actually true? Someone said, "Who is she?" I was like, "What? What?
Yeah.
What do you mean?" So I feel
Which,
like,
I'm sorry to cut you off. It
no, no,
makes
no,
it
you're good,
even
you're good.
funnier to me though, because then the next post you see is someone saying Maureen won because of politics. I'm like,
Yeah,
how do you ever think this? Like, how can you
yeah.
possibly think that politics come into play when you're talking about, to most people, one of the least popular people in this top six wins the show? She doesn't have. I think Ben Quill coaches her now. I don't know how long it's been going on for,
I saw
but
that. Yeah,
yeah. So awesome on them. Great job, Ben. But it's like Ben's not a big bikini name whatsoever. Like he's just, I think he has Tanikia and he has a couple people in on his team in bikini, but he's not a huge bikini team. He doesn't
hmm,
sponsor a bunch of shows for bikini. Like, and I always shut down the political argument anyway because I've been to I went to 18 pro shows this year, and the people that win these shows, it's like if anyone's calling politics, it's absolutely ridiculous. Anybody can win any given day. We went to Sasquatch a couple weeks ago, and Adri won, and she's international. Like,
yeah,
there's no politics involved with this. And
yeah.
then especially trying to say it about Maureen, I'm like, there's no political positive that can come to the IFBB for Maureen winning. When she won her first Olympia, she's a good person, a good ambassador, but she wasn't like out there like Laura Lee is when she wins and going all over the place and filming everything. Like there's no positive political scheme there about Maureen winning. She won because she was the best that day. That's all it was.
Yeah. And that's what bodybuilding should be and is. You know what? Do you know what I mean? Like it always has been and it always will be. Like I think people, like I said, people have a perception if they don't agree. And this is the whole point. Like bodybuilding isn't as black and white as people think it is. It is very complex and it's very complicated. And sometimes we don't agree. Not everyone agrees with the winnings, but you have to understand the criteria and break it down and be like, okay, why did she win? Because there's an obvious reason. Like it's not like they just picked her and been like, oh yeah, we'll do this one this year. You know, like they specifically were going through pose by pose. Like they know what they're doing. These judges have been doing these for years and years. Like they know what they're talking about. So of course she won for a reason. So break that down instead of being like, nah,
Yep.
that I don't agree with that. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me. So, but going back
Yeah.
to what I was saying with the I do think that again, like I had a lot of message saying, you know, I feel bad for Laura Lee. Like I want her to win. And I'm like, I do as well. Like she's one of my closest friends. You know, she has the heart of the people, you know. I say that she's the heart of the champion of our hearts, you know, because everyone loves her. But was she her best? No. And unfortunately, the judges can't take that into account and be like, well, she is the most popular or whatever. So that's why she's winning. That's not
Exactly.
how it works. If it was, then that would be a whole different ball game. And I don't, everyone would be here, there, and everywhere, like everywhere. You know, so Jazzy, we haven't seen Jazzy since the Arnolds, you know, and this is a
Yep.
huge improvement as well since the Arnolds, 100% since the Arnolds. I think she's improved massively, and that's why she took that time off because she was like, I want to be in that top spot again. I want to, you know,
Yeah.
potentially win
Yeah.
it. So there's no messing around. I need to get back to work, which is
Yeah.
good. So
And Jazzy's a close friend of mine. We talk all the time. I've had her fly out to me for training a few times, and she made me eat my words because when I do my prediction videos before the Arnold and the Olympia, and they all know it. I'm as unbiased as it comes. Like I have people in the Olympia, and I didn't put Vanya in first, and I trained her into the Olympia.
mhm.
Jazzy's one of my closer friends. I didn't put her in. I put her a little bit lower than I had her last year, where no one was expecting her to come out last year, like in the top five. I put her in my top five and she got third. This Olympia, I think I predicted her in fifth on my live that I did. And just because of all I can recall of her is how she looked at the Arnold and then how
Yes.
I've seen other girls looking since. And so I was just like, if they prove me wrong, awesome. Like, and I just commented, Cash just made post of Ashlyn and Jazzy in their second, third place finish, and I commented on it. I was like, I've never been more happy to be proven wrong by my friends before. Like, I love that shit. Like, that's what I would want to see. But if I'm gonna do an
Yeah.
unbiased prediction, I'm gonna make it more statistical analysis than like me knowing the people. So
And that's how it should be. And again, it's
yeah,
okay for us to also have opinions to be like, oh, I think this person will win. I think this person will win just because of what we see throughout the whole year. Like, again, we haven't seen Jazzy all year. We saw her at third last year. We saw her come sixth at the Arnold this year, and then not anything really since. Obviously, on line, she posts like she's probably one of the most common people that posts her check-in photos like over and over again. And I
yeah,
love that because you can kind of see where she looks like, and like it's exciting because you can get excited for her and like what she looks like and everything like that. So I love that. So I think she was more active, and I thought she looks really good this year. But I was the same. Like I didn't know if I had her. I think I maybe had her at like fifth or sixth as well. So again, she proved me wrong, and I love that. And that's what it's
yeah,
about, you know. Um,
yep.
okay, let's get
Yep.
on
And then there's
to
some people too where we think of their consistency. Like I had Ashley in I think third or fourth, and she ended up in fifth. And I just
yeah.
based it on like the history of Ashley. Like she's
Mm-hmm.
consistently in the top. She consistently wins shows. I'm like, yeah, a third or fourth place is pretty solid there when I consider like Laura Lee winning.
Yeah.
And then she ends up in fifth. So it's like I said like 2 minutes ago, it's the biggest swinging pendulum in the entire industry. Someone can go from, I mean, we saw it with Kate from New Zealand. She got
Yeah.
15th in her first show of the year and won the next week, 1 week later. And
That's
that's how she got her
crazy.
qualification. So it's like the biggest pendulum. And it was almost most of the same girls in the show. So
Yeah,
it's just how it goes.
exactly. Exactly. So, okay, so this is 6th through the 10th. So you've got Laura Lee, Evie, Vanya, Maria, and Ariella or
Yeah,
Aria.
Ari.
Yeah.
Ari, yeah. Evie
Um,
looked insane. Evie was, I was a part of some of Evie's check ins through the week with James, and Evie looked insane. I agree right where she's at. I think she could have been ahead of Laura Lee here. I agree with where Vanya's at. But Evie looked amazing. Evie could have pushed a top five for sure.
this is probably the best Evie I can see. And then again, this was something that again I saw a lot of people saying is like, okay, well, there was leaner girls than the top five, and Evie was one of them. So Evie was probably I would say the leanest out of the top
Yeah, yeah,
10.
I think
So,
so. Her and
and
Ashlyn probably.
she's always super lean, but that's what looks good on her. Like I've seen her come in
Yeah,
slightly softer, it doesn't work, like slightly fuller, fuller yet soft, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work on her shape. It doesn't look as good. And I feel like when she's tight but bursting, that's when she looks her best. And the judges know that. So again,
yeah,
it
yeah.
goes back to how does this person as a whole, as their whole kind of athlete persona, what did they look like at their best? And this is what she looked like at her best. And I think, again, I said to you, I was like, I don't know if she's too lean or not to get into the top 10. I want to see her in the top 10, but I don't know if she's too lean, maybe. But I think this was the perfect amount. Again, I wanted to see what they all look like next to each other, to be fair, to kind of make a decisive decision. But I do think that this was a good call from obviously what the judges made. And I agree. Like she does beat Laura Lee with the front kind of the condition on the conditioning standpoint.
Yeah, Laura Lee always going to kill it in shape. Like
Yeah.
the side glute profile that she has in her front pose, in her overall balance because of that from top to bottom. That's why she places where she does. Like people saying that it's a gift to Laura Lee to be in there because of her name. Again, she's the
No.
champion that you have to knock out. So she's coming in with the judges being like, all right, is she going to repeat this year? And she dropped from first to sixth. Like that's
Yeah.
a pretty big drop from being the
Yeah.
winner last year. And so it's not like she was favored in that sense. You're looking for a champ to repeat. She didn't look the part this year, and she dropped all the way to six. And again, I could see Evie being ahead of her here, but again, that's just being nitpicky at that point. Looking at the front pose, Laura Lee is balanced. She is shape.
Yeah.
So
I mean, when I look at Evie, my main thing again, I don't know if this is my posing brain turning on and stuff like that. I do think that Evie's flaring just a tad in her front pose
mm,
and that's just I feel like because she's European, I feel like that's and I'm UK European kind of style. I think that's just the European flair that we always kind of feel like we need to do, is flare the upper body, because we used to have to do that back in the day. And she
Yeah,
used to be IFBB Elite, all that type of thing. I mean, obviously she's been in the IFBB Pro League for a while now, but I think that's always her main thing that I kind of see posing wise, is just that flair. So I would say just relax it, because she has that shape. Like if you have that hand like what here, that then creates so much more S shape. There's just less gap. So it just, your eye then gets drawn more to that lower back curvature
yeah,
versus it being like the hand being further out, you know? But that's just my brain. But I do think that this is the best front post she's had for sure.
yeah,
100%, like
definitely.
especially from a glute perspective, because I think that sometimes, again, this is only me seeing it from online and stuff, but I always feel like Evie sometimes is flatter in the glutes from conditioning, but this was the best. This was the best
Yeah,
EV for sure.
definitely. And to touch on a comment that I know we've both seen going around, that I hope like Tyler will probably shed a lot of light on. People saying and asking, is this a reset for bikini?
No.
Because the winner was softer and Laura Lee still placed in first call out. She came in really soft. Everyone in the top 10 to top 15 is a standard for bikini. This is the
Mm-hmm.
Olympia. It's the
Yeah.
Olympia. So, and there were 70 girls up there. The top 15 were all judged and actually got a placing because the judges are looking at them and go, you deserve to not be 16th. Like, we are going to
Yeah.
place you accordingly because of how they looked. There were more girls that were hard than were soft in the top
Mm-hmm.
15 by a mile. By a mile. At least 75 to 80% were harder. And so for people to say that we're confused on the judging criteria because we've seen harder rewarded all year long, you only saw soft rewarded here because Maureen looks better that way. She won
Mm-hmm.
because that is how her physique looks better. Everyone else, look at Ashlyn, second place, hard, good condition. Jazzy, good condition. You have Evie here, who's pretty hard as nails. Vanya, look at the lines through her quads. Like you have everyone here who is fairly harder, more so than you see soft. And so, no, it is not a reset on the criteria of bikini. Maureen just has one of those physiques, just like Laura Lee does, that I feel is somewhat unattainable. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're not, you can't train and look like Laura Lee. It's
No.
her genetic structure and how she sits in her front pose. It's all very genetic mixed with how hard she works. Some people, take Jazzy for instance. Jazzy has come a long way because
Yeah.
she has trained her ass off to get there. And not taking away from any girls that have better genetics, but Jazzy has gotten herself all the way to that top three because she's trained for it. Versus out the gate, she's a front runner. So that's the difference between what some people are seeing. And Maureen naturally just has that, just like Laura Lee does, naturally has that better, slightly softer look, especially when you look at Maureen. But there's no reset in the bikini judging when it comes to, well, now we all got to go backwards and be softer. They don't want to see tie-ins. I'm like
Yeah.
going back to Maureen's back pose. Like, come on, guys. We're like, I've seen good coaches saying this. I'm like, you guys know what a tie-in is, right? Like
Yeah.
Maureen has tie-ins. Just because you don't come to a sharp point doesn't mean there's not
Yeah.
tie-ins
That
there.
doesn't mean
So
that doesn't mean they don't have, yeah, that it's so it's hard though, because I understand that, like you said, it's a swinging pendulum. Like bikini's never going to be that cut. Like this is it. I mean, not even bikini. Bodybuilding in general isn't like this is a photo. This is what I want you to be. It's not like I want you to be this certain body weight or body fat percentage or this has to be the size of your glutes. If it was like that, we'd all look the exact same. The exact same. And unfortunately, it's not that, and it is opinion based as well. So it's what the judges feels fits the criteria, not a case
yeah,
of who is the leanest or who has the most muscle, who has the whatever. It's who is the most balance, who has the most flow.
yeah,
And it's also not just about the body, it's about everything: the tan, the hair, the makeup, the aura you bring to stage. Like, I think alone, Laura Lee and Maureen kind of kill it in that division. I think the
yeah,
most out of everyone. Like, you come on stage, like people, when they see Laura Lee come on stage, when they see Maureen come on stage, everyone's just taken away by just their presence on stage. Not just even the physique, but just their presence in general, which is something that it takes years to get that confident
yeah,
being, like it is so hard to be that confident on stage with 100, however many people looking at you, and just obviously in general, just being at the Olympia. Do you know what I mean? Like it's scary as fuck being in the Olympia. Like it's the biggest competition in the world. So of
yeah,
course it's
yeah,
it's hard to uphold that, but they do that so well. So yes, Laura Lee might have been a little bit off, but it doesn't mean that she was completely like, okay, cool, like not even. anywhere near the top 10. I do think that she's still top 10 worthy, of course, like she got sixth, of course, but I do think that there was just things that she needed to change. That's okay. That's okay,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. But before we go to their back pose, and I'm sure someone's going to clip this quote from me right now, but what you to expand on what you were just saying for how it's opinionated and objective, and when it comes to bikini criteria, when you look at pretty much most other divisions, um, people can come in with the exception of wellness. You come in pretty much as conditioned as you want. You're rewarded for it.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at bikini, when we've been talking about things being rewarded for being harder all year long, that's because that's what's looked better on the girls that have won.
Mm-hmm.
Like Maria looks better when she's a bit harder. Ari looks better when she's a bit harder. When they're like that 1% too soft, just like Vanya, when we turn to the back here, you'll see when they're that 1% or a little bit too soft, it can throw off an entire physique. So bikini criteria is different on every single individual. There is a set standard of what we call bikini criteria when it comes to proper conditioning, and you don't want to see etched out hamstrings, and you don't want to see like striations in the delts. Those are like standards. Like, yeah, if you're walking to the back and your glutes striate, there you go. You're getting knocked out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit your front pose and your delts are striated, or you're too vascular and too big in the top, yeah, you're getting knocked down a little bit. But those are things that are across the board for everyone. But then when it comes to other parts of the criteria, it looks different on everybody. Conditioning on Maureen is not going to be the same conditioning on Ashlyn to bring their best to fit the criteria. Conditioning on Evie looking like this is not going to be anywhere near what Maureen looks like to be her best. Mm-hmm. They have two opposites in conditioning to look bikini criteria for their body, for their structure. If Evie came in softer, she wouldn't have been top 10 here. If Maureen came in too hard, like look at her back pose softer. If she came in too hard, she's going to have like figure detail in the back.
Yeah.
Because it's her genetics and how her glutes and tie-ins project so much being as soft as she is. And so they being able to be a coach and an athlete and understand where your line is to meet bikini criteria. There's one end of the spectrum of too hard, one end of too soft, and you have that gray area in the middle where you have to find what end of that spectrum you look better on. And that's where you nail it. And if you're within a couple percent of your part of the spectrum, then you're going to be rewarded for it because you look best for your physique. So bikini criteria, when I'm looking at all these captions and stories people are posting about how does she place like this when this person's harder? Well, she placed like this because that person harder doesn't look as good as her softer. That's why. It doesn't mean bikini criteria hasn't shifted to we are rewarding harder and more conditioned. It's just that that's what's been rewarded because the girls we see coming in look better harder. We didn't see a Maureen or a Laura Lee compete all year long. So we can only go off of the harder looks that we've seen. We haven't had anyone on stage that looks better when they are softer. It's rare. There's no Jen Dory up there. There's no Maureen up there throughout the year. And so we haven't gotten to see those girls that do really, really well when they are that tad bit softer. The girls that have won look better a little bit harder. So that's what has had to be rewarded. So it's not a reset of the bikini criteria. It's not a reset where, well, Laura Lee got 6 and Maureen got first, so it looks like we're going softer. Really? How about second, third? Like Ashlyn and Jazzy had veins in their core when they were walking back to the front. You're telling me that suddenly it's not hard anymore?
Yeah.
Second and third place are hard. So I just want to throw that out there to just like give my opinion on that, and that's just how bikini criteria is. So
also the judges like can only judge what's in front of them as well. Like it's not like a case of okay, cool, they can only judge what's in front of them in terms of other bikini shows like you mentioned and stuff like that. So like they have to reward what is the closest to that criteria with everything, for example. And not to say obviously the girls didn't hit the criteria, because I think a lot of the girls 100% did, but I think that some shows there's people that are a little bit leaner and they fit the criteria better. Some girls are a little bit softer, they hit the criteria there. So that's why they're there, and that's why they're at the Olympia, because that's how they won at their best. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to explain, but also it's not, you know. I think also sometimes it's difficult to understand kind of like because it does differ a little bit from competitor to competitor. And if you've only gotten into bodybuilding since, say for example, last year, and you saw Laura Lee win to then Laura Lee now, getting sick, that people are like, okay, what's happened? Like maybe they don't understand it as well. And that's exactly why we're here, because this is what
Yeah.
needs to be explained. Um,
Do you pose Maria?
no, I
Go to her front
don't.
pose really quick. What do you
Yeah.
think of her pointing her foot dead on? Do you think that's because she knows she's a little bit like quad dominant, so she's making everything look a little thinner, or
I think so, yeah. So I think, but she has quite nicely developed quads. I don't think they're too big,
mm,
but again, in this shot, I mean, it looks like the camera's like kind of slightly to the side as well. So it's kind of
yeah,
getting
yeah,
that quad, and it like that my eye gets drawn to her quad, right? So I
mm-hmm.
think that's why she does keep that foot kind of completely to the front, because I think one, she probably gets the most glute pop from that positioning, and she could sit into it better. And two, yeah, to hide the quads and just not make them as round or as developed, if that makes sense, just having a
Yeah,
bit more
yeah,
balance. I think I think she's got a great front pose. Again, like you said, balance wise, is she the most balanced? I think she's balanced, but my eyes do get drawn to her legs, her glutes
yeah,
as well. I think that again, that's the hardest thing to kind of like differentiate sometimes, is like, again, where do your eyes get drawn to most? And that shouldn't be the case in a lot of times. Obviously, there's going to be situations that it happens in, but with bikini, it shouldn't happen too regularly where, oh my God, her glutes are amazing, which again, you can say that, but you want to look at the whole package versus it just being one part, like we've been
yeah,
discussing this whole
definitely,
time.
definitely.
But yeah, I think the front foot, she's kind of slightly diagonal, to be fair. She's not completely full on, but I think that's to make her quads just look a little bit more balanced,
Yeah,
to be fair.
yeah. I was
Um,
just curious your thoughts on that, but yeah, back poses here look good all around. Like I don't think this is anyone's best except for probably Evie. Um, but back poses all in all, nothing's missing entirely. Like overall
no,
development is there. Vanya was a little bit behind, I think, on condition, but again, she could only do so much,
yeah.
like load management and intensity wise with her back injury.
Hmm.
So I'm sure that hindered a little bit of that caloric expenditure leading into the show.
Yeah.
Um, Laura Lee is definitely softer than we have seen before, but to
Yeah.
everyone saying that Laura Lee has downsized a lot or has lost muscle, like go argue with a wall about that, because no, no, she has not. Like you're just not seeing the crisp Laura Lee that we saw in previous shows, in last year's Olympia and last year's Arnold. She's not as dug out from the back. She still has that literal perfect balance in the back. You're just not seeing that. You're just not seeing the conditioning that we have seen her in before, where you actually get to see the pop of everything.
That's what I was going to say. So in person, did she have more projection, would you say? Or because for
Yeah,
me,
there
I
was.
feel like, for me, did she lose any of that projection? Again, this is from looking at a photo. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if,
think she lost some of the projection in terms of she looks like she needs another 2 to 3 weeks to go to be at her
okay,
best. Like I think if
okay.
she were to go hop into Romania in November or Prague, she could be 100% and go win.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there is any muscle loss there whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's no shape loss at all. It's just a matter of, again, like I said a few minutes ago, some people come in that little bit too soft for their physique, throws off the entire look. Like some people have that leeway where they can be a little bit off and still look really good. Like
Hmm.
Ashley K. Like Ashley can be a little bit off and she's still top five in the world. Laura
Yeah.
Lee comes in like looking 2 to 3 weeks out, and it really throws off what we really expected from her, especially in the back pose. And I think the
Hmm.
biggest thing with Laura Lee is like just individual like fat distribution wise across the body. She carries a lot in her glute in that upper hamstring and thigh area. So
Hmm.
when they did the walk to the back, that's where she really lost it. That's where I think
Oh, okay.
that's where a lot stood out, was you saw a little bit too much there, like too much movement in the back, where
Okay.
typically you see Laura Lee and you're like, nobody can attain those glutes. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then we saw this version of her where she just wasn't ready yet. She had a couple weeks to go still, to where it threw off the walk to the back a ton.
Okay. That's fair. And again, that's something from the live stream I couldn't see. You could see it a little bit, but not again, as
Mhm.
clearly as you do in person, which I always want to try and alliterate. I
Yeah,
think I like the bet. I think posing wise, I really like Maria's back pose the
Maria,
most. Like
100%.
how she's standing. Again, it's natural. It's not like pushed. I think again, like I said before, Evie's just it flares a little bit too much with the arms, like the elbows are too twisted out for me personally. I think if she was to just bring the hands lower to again create just a little less room in between this, like and have because you see a lot of like tricep and stuff like that as well, which
Yeah.
for me isn't a bad thing, but you don't want it to be too much, you know? So I think if she was to bring those hands down a little bit and just kind of point the elbows like more diagonally to the back versus out to the side, I think,
When you
yeah,
look
out
at
of this
pose for
lineup,
pose, Maria and Laura Lee definitely hit the pose the best. Like as
yeah.
far as like pose stature goes, they're
Hmm.
identical. They're proper width in the feet, toes turned out to the right degree, how their hands are sitting in front of their thighs, like everything overall shape and silhouette wise from the back. Laura Lee and Maria absolutely kill it here in the back pose itself,
Yeah, I
like posing
agree.
wise. And
I
Maria
agree.
is one of my favorite physiques in the entire industry. I say this every single year. I watched her in person at every show she did last year and this year, and she's one of my favorite physiques. I think she has a huge upside. I
Yeah.
think as they start to like dial in her front pose a little bit better, this back pose stands with the top five, 100%.
Yeah. I
Her front
agree.
pose comes in a little more, and she'll be in there.
I agree. She looks really, really like I really like the development she has and how like
Mm-hmm.
it's just really nice. It's round, really nice and round. There's no like specific strike. I mean, from what I could see anyway on the live stream and from what I've seen her in person and stuff, she's very nice and round. Like it just doesn't like the muscle doesn't look like hard to project, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there's no like too much striation. I don't know. It just looks very pleasing to look at.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I like it a lot. So yeah, I mean, and also Ari Brothers, she did really well. Because I know she
yes,
wanted to get into the top 10 this year, and I think last year she got 13th.
I believe so. She was just outside of 10 last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So she did really well with getting into that top 10. And I think what would you say because I think she's one that could definitely kind of get into that top five as she gets like more consistent and more into the industry. Is this her third Olympia?
I think it's her third. Yeah,
Third Olympia. So
yeah.
what would you
her
say
her
she
first her first Olympia, she got
seventh?
seventh, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. If I had to
Um,
say something she needs to work on, and I think genetically speaking, I think she has like a little bit thicker skin type of look. Like she doesn't
yeah.
get those like crisp dugout look in her front or back pose in comparison to some people. Like I feel like body fat wise, she's probably just as lean as Maria is here. You can see it through the hamstrings. You can see how the delts and triceps look, but the skin just looks different. So I
Yeah.
think, especially with it's her third Olympia. I think that, and it's only her first full year with James. I think show by show, she will continue to dial in harder and harder. She'll
Hmm.
recomp better after the show, have a good reverse, and you know it better than anyone. Every time you compete, the next prep starts from a little bit better body composition point, as
Yeah.
long as you nail everything through your off season.
Yeah.
And so I think as she continually does that, she's going to get better and better. And she has one of the highest upsides of anyone in the league, I feel like. I think that 100% Ari, like say a year, 2 years from now, can push anyone in the entire top five.
I agree. And I also think she's very similar to Laura Lee because again, when you see Laura Lee 100%, she's not the type of person that is super striated or conditioned or like gets very like grainy looking. She has like a thicker skin that makes her look, it doesn't make her look softer because she's not softer, but it doesn't then create those etched in, for example, like tines that like
Yeah,
Maria has, or like the striations that other competitors have, like Evie or something like that. You know, like again, it's looking at it from a perspective and like just what they can do. But I do think when they're both 100%, because I think I said that when she did her first Olympia, I was like, she's because she's kind of come onto the scene in the last like 3-4 years,
yeah.
Ari. So um, I was like, she's very similar to Laura Lee. Like when I think she won a show, one of her pro shows or something like that, one of her first pro shows, and I looked and I was like, she's very similar to Laura Lee,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how like presence wise, looks wise, how her glutes sit, like body fat distribution, they're very similar. Um, and that's why I was like, potentially and it all kind of comes together very, very well. So I was like, she could be a threat to most people in the top 5 for sure when she's 100%.
Yeah.
So I agree, 100% agree. Okay, let's go on to 15th, 11th to 15th. So
we have
we've got
Raina, Dan, Jordan Brannon, and I cannot remember
Sally and then Victoria.
Victoria. And
Sally's from
Victoria's
Japan, I
doing the show this
think.
upcoming weekend. Yeah, and Victoria is Hungary, I believe.
Yes, she's
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Hungary.
And to touch on Victoria, I don't know her at all or anything, but she was probably the standout of the Olympia for me, just knowing her
Really?
history this year because she turned pro this year, won her
Hmm.
first pro show, and qualified for the Olympia and then got top 15.
Oh,
So
wow.
that is a standout performer of the year right there for me. That's like a rookie of the year type of thing.
Yeah.
I think she looks phenomenal. The like her S curve in this front pose looks gorgeous. Like everything in this is very, very like pleasing to the eye.
Yeah.
I think that the S curve might be a little overly exaggerated. I think that she could like balance wise come up a little bit, but just looking at her, she has that wow factor where I think in the future she's going to do really, really well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think she just from top to bottom, like again, like you said, her taper kind of really stands out to me, which again, I don't know. I don't know if it's a European thing, but it could be. But if she was to kind of calm that down, very, very small amount, and that could just be posing wise, like not flaring that arm as much or whatever. But I do think that but that also fits well with her physique. Like I think that in for her looks good. If anyone else was to
Yeah,
kind of do that hard, I don't think they would get away with it. I think
yeah,
it's not too much to the point where I'm like, oh, it's really like obvious and your eye gets drawn to it too much, but it is something that you're like, okay, yeah, maybe just a little less. But
yeah.
I think,
I
yeah,
can't
she
tell if in
stands
this
out.
angle, I feel like her planted foot almost like directly 90 degrees, or is it?
It's
No,
like
it's turned a
it's
little
like
bit.
that. It's like that. It's not
Yeah, yeah.
like fully to the front, but it's like kind of like that. Which, if I'm
Okay.
honest,
Yeah,
like either this direction or this direction for the front foot for front pose is most people's favorite spots
yeah,
because most of the time that's where the glutes looks the best, and what most of the time, obviously, the quads and stuff like that. Um, they don't want to hide them, but they want to kind of obviously make them balanced to the rest of the lower body and stuff like that. So,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I was really impressed with her when she came out. And she looks phenomenal. Like again, top to bottom, like appearance wise, looks great. Like everything for me. When you look again, you look at everything looks great as a whole. So you look at the picture and you're like, that's a really good shape. Like not
yeah.
her glutes look like, yeah, her glutes do look really good, but my eyes got getting specifically drawn to them. Um, I think anyway, because I think everything looks nice and balanced. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And what's funny is I feel like other than Jordan Brannon, the other four in this call out are very comparative front pose wise. They all have that
yeah,
almost exaggerated S curve and like almost a forced look in their torso.
yeah. I
And
actually, yeah, I agree.
I was gonna say I think that's what separates them from getting into that top 10 this year.
Mhm.
Is that like looking at Reina, looking at Jordan, you have almost like they're almost picture perfect conditioning for their body. Overall development wise is awesome. Like Jordan's glutes in the front pose look amazing.
Mhm.
Same with Reina. Like everything looks fairly balanced across the board. But I feel like it's how they're in their front pose is throwing it off. And I
Mhm.
can't speak to if there's a personal reason for that. Like I don't know if someone has scoliosis or someone has a back
Yeah.
injury or what it may be. But just looking at it, I feel like that's what throws me off of their front pose is how
Mhm.
exaggerated they curve that spine and how much they sit into that hip. Because like Jordan has a good front pose, like she has great side glute profile there. Her delts match, like everything's very balanced muscularly. But I think it's just that overall curvature where it looks almost forced. It's like you said. It's like you said a little bit ago. It's not a naturally sitting front pose. Like she doesn't. She looks. I don't want to use the word uncomfortable, but it looks like it's a forced front pose. They're
Yeah,
not just
I
sitting in there
agree.
easily.
You want it to be very natural. If you just kind of look, can you see that kind of with the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you can see just kind of from that side, like the side by side, like how, for example, like Ashton looks here it's very like easy. And what I usually try and do is allow, because I think what it is also that the way that you sit into the hips more so than anything. So the way that you sit into the hips, how much then you also flare the arm, where the arm is also then placed. So you don't want to overarch to the point where the glutes are so far out then that the torso is really far away. So it kind of is like really like this. Do you know what I mean? Because then that again, it highlights something that is then that's where your eye draws to, which you don't want. You don't really want that. You want it to be like, for example, Jordan. I would say she probably could stand up a tad more. Like she's got a great, like this is a really nice S curve, but I feel like it's almost like too. It needs to be elongated, if that makes sense. Like it's sat.
It's almost like it's too pointy, if you want to use that terminology, like for lack of better words. It's just in comparison to looking at Jazzy and how Jazzy can literally look. It looks like she can just stand like that 24/7. It doesn't look forced. It looks like the total curvature going into her hip and glute, just like she can just sit there. Where Jordan looks like she's pushing into it a bit. And I do agree. If she stood up a little straighter, I think that changes the whole look, and she's probably pushing into that top 10, and that might have been the difference right there in the front pose.
But then also, I think the girls also then kind of look at it as saying, okay, is that then enough? So for you know, does she need to grow more of her glutes to then be able to not sit into the hips to make her glutes like that? Because again, that's another thing that we always have to look at as well, is like we do need to sit into the hips a certain amount, because again, getting this conditioned, obviously sometimes we can lose the glutes, you know, and the fullness in them. So sometimes sitting into them is better, but then overall we lose that balance aspect, which again is then why you see Sandy saying don't sit into your back pose, because we don't want you to accentuate like so much of your hips that then your upper body is lost. Same with the front pose. But if you do it like a minuscule amount, you can get away with it. But again, it's finding the marker of how much do you need to do it. You know, I do still think that this front pose on Jordan looks great. I think again, like it's just looking at them as like comparing them all. Like, okay, which one looks more natural? Jazzy, Ashlyn, Maureen, like have that more natural look about their posing, more effortless.
And it's also, to what you just said too, that also comes down to show by show, athletes and coaches being able to decipher judging criteria. Because a judge can, like, let's say that I look at Raina or look at Jordan, and I'm like, the spinal curvature and how you're sitting into your hip just kind of throws off the front pose, and that's the feedback that they get. I'm not saying that's the feedback they got, but if that's the feedback they get, how do you decipher that? Because then the coach and the athlete need to like mess with the front pose. And just because let's say Sandy gave Jordan the same feedback we just said. Let's say that she goes, if you stand up a little bit more in your front pose, it'll make it look more natural. You'll sit into it better. And then she does that the next show, and then someone tells her, hey, in your front pose, you don't have as much side glute projection anymore. So right there is being able to decipher the judging feedback, because the judges can only give you feedback on what they saw that day. So if that's the feedback that day and then you change it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make you better, because if you change it, the judge giving you that feedback doesn't know what it looks like changed. They're just picturing it and going, I think that would look better. And then you do it, but that judge doesn't realize that just took away from part of your glute projection.
Yeah, exactly. Because judges don't know what your diet is, what your training is. They don't know side by side what you're doing. You, like you said, you sit into your glute. Okay, you're sitting too much. Stand up. Oh, actually, no, that doesn't look better. Like you have to. The judges' feedback is very, very good, and I think it's again. I always say this to all of my athletes: if you can, try and email the judges, try and get feedback as quickly as you can, so you can make changes if needed. But you also need to know the difference of making changes to your physique and what you already have versus what the judges actually say to you. Like again, they could say bring more conditioning, or like this is one that I think I've heard. I don't know if this is actually true or not. Like people have said, you know, Laura Lee's feedback last year was for people to come in maybe a little bit softer. And I don't know if that's actually true. Like, I'm not saying that is true, but I've heard that through the grapevine in terms of like Reddit and all that sort of thing. Say, for example, that is true. She's now gone slightly softer, say, for example, and it's not her best look, you know? Exactly. So they could be like, okay, actually, no, your best was 2024 when you won, you know? Like, you don't actually need to change, which is probably, as an athlete of the sport, and you as a trainer of the sport, the most frustrating part, because you do things for trial and error, and that's the risk you take. You have to do it And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You get over it and you try again. That's it. Like it
Yeah, yeah,
sucks. That's the sucky part. But your perspective also could be, okay, I'm only going to get better. Like that's the best thing is you're only going to get better. The more shows you do, the more feedback you get that every time you step on stage. And that's the mindset you have to kind of bring to these big stages as well. Like I'm sure Laura Lee obviously is disappointed. Of course, like she's just won last year and obviously is now sixth, which is still amazing. I'm sure she's disappointed, yes, but I'm also sure she's got a fire now to come back and be like, right, let's be better. And I think that's the whole
yeah,
point as well.
yeah. And I think that honestly, and I can't speak for Kim, but Kim's a great coach. Like, I mean, look at
Mhm.
Vanya and Laura Lee winning the shows that they do and his history in winning.
And Janet.
So I think that, and Janet, I think that he took the feedback, and if that softer feedback was the feedback, they did it and it didn't work out. So maybe it was a little too soft from what the judges may have had in mind, but I do feel like where Laura Lee is at, and like I said, nothing has been lost at all, muscularly, shape wise at all. If she took 2 to 3 more weeks, she'd go win a show.
Yeah.
But what do you think of like this is why it's my personal opinion on why Ashley Kay does so well throughout the year and then still always places in the top of the Olympia because she puts
Mhm.
herself out there a lot. She
Yeah.
does a lot of shows. I almost wonder if Laura Lee had done at least one show this year, if they could have taken that Olympia feedback, if it was to come in softer, do that at a show that maybe Tyler or Sandy or Bill, like one of the center panel Olympia head judges are judging at a pro show. If she had brought that look, she could have executed better for Olympia because she would have had more feedback rather than taking the entire year to just do just the Olympia. I feel like it could have helped her a lot to do 1 or 2 shows through the year.
I think it would have helped, not from in any way, if anyone's thinking about this from a political standpoint, but from just a feedback
Yeah,
standpoint of
yeah,
like, okay, I need to see if this look works because I haven't competed all year. She didn't do the Arnolds. Obviously, she's not done any other shows since over a year or just under a
last
year.
last Olympia. Yeah,
Yeah. So is this look going to work? I don't know. Like
yes,
you don't know
exactly.
if it's going to work. So yes, I agree. I do think that maybe if she did one show, potentially they could have said, okay, maybe not. I'm not the biggest fan of maybe this look. Maybe come in softer or gotten that feedback for going into the Olympia. Then potentially, yeah, she could have bumped up and still
Yeah,
reigned her title and
and
all
I
that type of thing.
feel I'm just basing that on a couple people. Like when I look at Ashley and how her and Adam do so many shows through the year. Like last year when she got second place in Dallas to Kate, and Adam came out or Ashley came out. One of them said it was because we tested coming in fuller than we usually do, and it's because they have that time frame to do so. They do so many shows. Let's try something different and see if the judges like it more. Let's see what the stage photos look like in comparison. And they can do that all year long and then get to the Olympia and try to nail what they felt was the best look through the year because they have 5 different looks to pick from.
And Adam's a data guy, and that's one thing like he loves is data. And I think that's something a coach does. They do need. They need data. Like you need
Mm-hmm.
that data to kind of be okay, what does this athlete need? Because not every prep is the same. Like my prep from 2023 to 24 different. Ashley's prep probably from the last show she did to this show probably completely different. So you need the data behind you to kind of be like, okay, what is our best? What we've done all these shows throughout this year or throughout the last however many years. What was our best look and why did the judges prefer this look? So and then you kind of go from there. And I do
Yeah.
think that that's why Ashley is so consistent. And I think people obviously hate on her quite a lot, which I understand. I don't understand why, but I don't, not to say I do understand why. I think people get annoyed because she's a champion and they
Mm-hmm.
don't specifically like to see maybe potentially people doing well because she does so well. Like she's won 50 pro shows
I
and
mean,
that's more than anyone's
she's
ever
like the
done.
Phil Heath of bikini. Like everyone loved Phil when he won his first couple Olympias, and then after that, just like when Jay Cutler beat Ronnie Coleman, when you do so good for so long, people start to want to see you lose because they want to
Yeah.
see a change up. And
Yeah.
I don't think anyone really. I've never seen many people like hate on Ashley as like a person or personality or anything. She's one of the sweetest
No.
people, but on stage, I think she gets that because they're like, oh, we want to see her lose this show because they just
Yeah.
want to see it. They want to see something different.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because she's literally one of the best of all time. So
Yeah, literally, and that's the hard reality, but that's in any sport. Like you're gonna have people that are like that, like point blank period. Like there's no reason for it, but it also keeps things interesting
Yeah.
in a way. So
Yeah.
like, and the good thing is it doesn't tear her down and she keeps going anyway. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
screw it. Like
I love how much she competes, me personally.
I do as well.
I think that it does, I don't want to call it damage control, but it does a little bit of like damage control for the Olympia, if you want to call it that. We could have had, she didn't compete as much this year, but in previous years, there could have been 5 more people in the Olympia if she hadn't done what she did.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it gets girls in the shows that are second, third, fourth place that are around her in first call out to get a comparison to someone you know is going to be top 5 at the Olympia, if
Yeah.
not winning the Olympia. Like you're going up against 3-time Miss Olympia and one of the best pros of all time. You can stand next to her and see where you need to improve.
And that is so exciting. And if that doesn't excite you as a pro, you need to adopt that mindset to be excited to stand next to these girls because, like, you'll never get that kind of feedback anywhere else. Like, a lot of these girls, I think Ashlyn competed a fair bit. Jazzy didn't compete that much this year. Maureen did 1. Amy did 2, 3.
Arnold,
Ash,
Pittsburgh, New York.
yeah, Ashley did a few. Like these girls aren't consecutive as much as this year. Just as looking at this year, they're not
Yeah.
competing that much. So when you get the chance to stand next to them, like you should be fired the fuck up to be like, I'm gonna bring my best, not to beat them, but to like be like, I want to be compared against them to see what I can work on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it should. That's how it should feel. Like you want to be excited to be next to these people. Obviously, yeah, it's nerve-wracking, of course, because they're the best, the best of the best. But that's bodybuilding. Like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
you should be so excited to improve and evolve and get better from show to show by standing next to these girls. Don't get me wrong, there's strategic things that obviously people do to try and get to the Olympia and all that type of thing. But overall, I think that's where you become your best from doing
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Pro, from doing New
Yeah.
York Pro, from doing the big shows and standing next to these big names. And that's pretty much
Anyone,
it.
if anyone listening doesn't follow Jazzy, you need to follow her Instagram and watch her stories because everything
Yeah.
Phoebe's saying right now, mindset wise, is that to a T. Like Jazzy, she knows she's good, but
Yeah.
she has a good attitude about it. But she loves the competition. Like she doesn't want to go and do a show where she's like, "Oh, I'm like the clear cut winner here." Like she wants to look at a roster and be like, "Oh shit, I got 4 people
Yeah.
from the top 10 of the Olympia against me. This person just won last week." Like she thrives on that. And win
Mhm.
or lose, she's like, "All right, what do I got to improve on next time?" Like she has that mindset to a T. And that is the epitome to me of an ambassador of this sport. Like for people
Yeah.
coming up to watch.
And one thing I think she mentioned, because she did a Q&A, I think a couple of days ago, or like yesterday or something like that. The one thing I think someone asked was like, what did you think about, Ashlyn going up, like getting swapped without you? And like, Ashlyn, you were kind of in that second place spot, and then Ashlyn kind of like beat you. And she was like, girl, I high-fived her when we swapped, like, and we ran off stage hugging. Like that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like that's one girlhood, sisterhood, like there, like love that so much. And that's how it should be because ultimately all these girls, like we're all friends. We all get on, we all talk. Like it's not like we will hate each other because of XYZ. You see all the men's bodybuilders, all the men's physique, they trash talk each other like all the time, but they're all friends. They're all friends. Like
Yeah.
it riles them up and it hypes them up. Like it's not vicious, it's not
Yeah.
vengeance, it's
Yeah.
just exciting, and they know that brings hype. So I
And
don't
honestly,
think.
I wish bikini had a little more of that
Yeah.
because I feel like that's what it's missing for mainstream viewing of people in
Hmm.
like, and I mean, obviously we have our diehard fans. Like I'm a huge fan of bikini. It's what I'm versed in. But when you're talking about when we talked in the beginning about how bikini, I don't want to call it undervalued, but when it comes to prize money, when it comes to any other podcast or media pages, like John from Pro Bikini News, the photos we're using here, he's one of the only ones that really touches on bikini.
Yeah.
Outside of Mike, who has the Pro Bikini page that just posts results and stuff. But to actually touch on these girls and be able to like speak on them and talk about everything that has to do with them, there isn't much out there with that. And I feel like a part of that comes from there isn't a lot of hype around between the girls, like between like the
Mm-hmm.
camaraderie
Because we're
side of it.
girls. We don't want to
I
fight.
know. But it's like
We don't
when you
have
think of the
that
men's physique,
testosterone.
when you think of the men's physique guys, and they're sitting there and they're like playfully shitting on each other or talking about X, Y, and Z. Like some of them don't like each other. Like let's just
Well,
be
yeah,
like
yeah.
real with it. But the ones that like are being playful about it, Ryan Terry sitting there, or Urs in open bodybuilding, how
Yeah.
he will be the biggest like jokingly trash talker out there, but then he travels the whole globe and goes and trains with these guys to put videos out of the camaraderie. When it comes to bikini, it's almost like people think no one likes each other. But
Yeah.
in reality, everyone's texting all day. We're all friends with each other. Like everyone's at least acquaintances where like we'll talk or hang out backstage, right? But if there was a little bit of that like rivalry in a sense where it was like, yeah, I'm like, let's say it's between Jazzy and Amy going to the Arnold, and Jazz just like, hey, I'm coming for her. I know that she's got this, but I know that I brought up this and X, Y, and Z. Like if there's just a little bit of that out there and it's playful, like that gets more hype around it. It gets more hype around the shows. It gets more people wanting to watch.
Yeah. And I think the hard thing is that in general, in the women's division, you don't get that at all, really, apart from Missy this year. And that was kind of
Yeah,
cool to
yeah,
see. I know
yeah.
obviously Missy kind of said that in figure, and obviously kind of that riled things up. And I think then there's more viewings and
Mm-hmm.
people wanting to go watch and talk about it because they're like, oh, Missy said this, I gotta watch now. Like, and
Yeah,
I agree, but I just again, it's so hard because I wouldn't even dream of wanting to do something like that because it's just not in me. And I think it's the same for the other girls. Like they wouldn't want
yeah,
to trash talk or say XYZ about any person, which I don't know if it's just a girl thing, like a female thing. But we want to kind of just be friends and just kind of get on. And again, like you said, I think that's why it's not as exciting. It's still very, very exciting. I do think it's very
yeah, yeah.
exciting. Like the whole division in general is really exciting. But from that standpoint, when people look at it from like a media side of things, then obviously it's a bit more difficult. So
Yeah. Well, like
maybe
touching
that will
on like
change. Maybe that will change.
the Gilco photo of Ashlyn and Jazzy walking off stage together, like with their
Mm,
arms around each other and like jogging off, like
fave.
that gets it. It's in that same sense. Like that's a more positive aspect of it. Where yeah, Jazzy got third last year, and Ashlyn got sixth or seventh,
Sick.
and
Sick.
sixth, and now Ashlyn jumped her this year at the Olympia. And I didn't see Jazzy's Q&A, but based on what you just said, like Jazzy is that girl that's just hyped for everyone. They're all like, she's in everyone's corner, wants to see everyone do well. And she just knows like in her mind, like got to come back better and beat her next time. It's still my
Yeah.
friend, but I got to come back better and beat her next time. And then Ashlyn will
Yeah.
be that same girl if Jazzy beats her. Ashlyn's going to be hyped for her. Like, I got third this time, you got second this time, or you won and I got second. And they'll be hyped for each other. And I feel like that's another aspect of what I just said, where I wish
Mhm.
more people were hyped for each other doing well.
Yeah.
Like and yes, everyone's friendly, but I wish that the entire top 10 of the Olympia were in Ashlyn's comments or in Maureen's comments after they post. Like you could see the
Mhm.
the badass photo of like Ashlyn and Maureen holding hands with each other. And I wish there were
Yeah.
more people hyping that up, like hyping up the positivity of that camaraderie. Obviously, they
Yeah.
want to beat each other, like they want to win. But I know Ashlyn was hyped to get second in the world,
Yeah.
and so the two of them standing there in that moment together, like the hype and the camaraderie and like the genuine love between the two of them, just being like they would have been happy either way right there. Like Maureen just came out and dominated her Pittsburgh performance, and Ashlyn just got her highest placing ever. And
Yeah.
so it's like that right there, they're both going to be content and happy with it, and they legitimately just were living in that moment, and you can see it through the photos. So
Yeah.
I love that type of shit.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of bikini is a little bit more so I would say than anything. I want to quickly go through because we've literally been talking already for a very, very long time. So I want
Oh,
to
yeah, it's been an hour and a half.
make sure, yeah, just on this. So this is the video. Can I make it big screen without you going? Yeah. This was the front post kind of with all of them here. Now I wanted to kind of just show you the video and show you how they all transition because they all transition differently. And let me just quickly go back. So everyone sits in their kind of like model pose and stuff like that different, but again, it like it you want to try and make it show everything off that's still fits the criteria at its best. So this is what I was talking about before with the whole balance thing, and obviously in transitions, in the movement, everything needs to hit. It's not just the front pose, back pose, that's it. It's everything. And I think the best poser here is definitely Jazzy and Amy. I think, in my
Yeah.
opinion, anyway, especially this perspective here, Maureen doesn't actually hit her model pose, which I don't know if that's potentially because she knows maybe it's not a strength of hers. She doesn't. She specifically goes straight. If you watch her here, she kind of goes straight into that glute shot. She does it in comparisons and stuff like that as well. She goes straight round here. She doesn't sit into the normal model pose and
Yeah.
transition how everyone else does, which again could be a strategic thing because she might
Yeah, definitely.
her best pose is glutes, like, so you may as well show it off as much as you can. But I think the best person who hits it here is Jazzy, the way she sits it, because she showcases off that S curve. Same with Amy, like really like showing off that hourglass look as much as they can within this whole kind of part of the routine, like the
Yeah.
transition part. It's really important to do, and I think that's one thing people forget. And when we've looked at the whole top four, top five, whoever, everyone's kind of been like, oh, Maureen's posing's the best, but like, maybe her front pose isn't the best, or maybe her back pose. But again, that's looking at specifics. You need to look at everything. So, and then glute shot here. I am obsessed with how dense Amy's glutes are specifically
Yeah.
in this shot. Is ridiculous. Like so full, yet so like not conditioned, but like enough to the point where I'm like, okay, cool. That's like, it doesn't need to be more than that,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
conditioning wise.
I think Amy's in a perfect spot all around, like structural and muscularly wise. She just, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at like the side by side of her at Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
to just see why I felt like that was a little bit sharper of a look, a little bit
Yeah.
better look. But all in all, like muscularly and just density and projection wise, Amy is spot on.
Yeah. I think one thing that I noticed with Maureen is how she used to step into her back pose differently. And it used to be how she dropped her back. This was from Pittsburgh. And I think I said this on my review. If she changes how she steps into her back pose, it will look better. Because she used to step out with her front foot, this foot here, and that would drop her glutes a lot. And then she'd push up again. So you could see that flaw happen in Pittsburgh. And here she doesn't do that. She steps out with the back foot perfectly, like they all do. And that's how you want to try and be at all times, is lifting those glutes, making sure that they're up. Like you don't want to kind of drop them in any way. That's like bikini 101, I think. Like
Yeah.
you never drop you never drop your glutes, right? So, but again, looking at this as a whole, like that back pose, I definitely think that hers stands out the most, like as a whole.
So pull up one thing just because I want to, again, like I'm not being biased and I don't even know Maureen. We've spoken a few times, but I want to back her up on her front pose really quick. Do you have that Gilco photo of her front pose?
Yes.
So angles are different on everybody. To everyone watching, camera angles can be taken differently. If someone
Oh,
changes
this is the front arm.
yeah, perfect. If they lean a little bit one way versus another way, you can throw off in bikini. You can throw off the entire front pose based on a photo and
Yeah.
a 3-inch different angle of a camera lens. So everyone's saying that Maureen's waist wasn't tight. Here's a front pose of a almost straight on angle of her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even necessarily a pleasing angle from the direction it's being shot at, because you actually see the majority of the front of her torso. So it's not even that pleasing an angle. But here by herself, sitting in her front pose, you can see that she is not too soft. You see everything you need to see her. She is soft, like Maureen soft, but she is not too soft. This is a very, very good front pose. You don't have too much detail, but you have enough where you have that delineation of, yep, the hip line coming straight down through the glute. And then her pointed leg doesn't have that like overly quad definition to it, but you can still see some lines. And then through the torso, the midsection is tight. So this is a very good front pose.
To people that literally are like, she's soft, I honestly don't understand it. Because like, again, for me, I'm pointing at this, like you can see the connection all the way, like all the way up from the
Yeah.
hip, from
Yeah.
literally where her connector is all the way down to her knee.
Yep.
Like I don't
Yep.
understand.
And
I don't
again, I think
understand
it's,
people saying she's
I
soft.
want to play devil's advocate and think that people are just saying it in comparison to second through fifth. Which,
Yeah.
she's the softest out of those 5 for sure, but she's not too soft. Maureen just looks better being a little softer. So
Yeah.
I could harp on that for hours, but This is a good front pose. I don't think she won the front pose. I don't think she was the best out of the top 4 in the front pose, but she won the show from the back. So
yeah, 100%. Like, and this picture speaks
yeah,
volumes. And
that
again,
right
it's
there.
not
Yeah,
and it's not a
hands
front
down.
on shot either. It's not obviously completely front on. It's like side to side as well. But like again, you can see a good amount into hamstring development. You've got that tie-in completely etched in,
Yeah, yep,
but with the density and fullness that you need. So like I feel like her back pose, I think, is probably very different from everyone else because, like you said, she kind of has that density at the bottom, whereas sometimes other people, it's not flat by any means necessary, but it's more of a conditioned look versus it being
yes,
poppy. And I think
yes.
that's why people are like, oh, she's softer because of it looks different. But no, I think she won because she won from the like specifically from the back when they turned her. It was like, yeah, that's our winner. Um, Exciting. God, we've
Yeah,
literally
I
gone
think
for
we
an
did like an
hour and a
hour 40 on
half
the Olympia. So
on the
everyone that is
Olympia as a
impressed,
whole.
there's your cardio lesson
Yeah.
on the Olympia.
Literally, my God, like that was a long talk as well about like everything. Which
Yeah,
I mean, again, it was needed, and I'm glad that we
yeah.
kind of went over kind of everything and kind of discussed a lot of things. And if there is anything else specifically with the Olympia that you have any questions on or anything like that, obviously comment down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, because it will be again, I want to hear people's opinions because this is our outlook as well. Like sometimes, again, everyone's at different points of their bodybuilding journey. So again, us who have been in the game for like years, we understand it. And that's great. We understand it. Some people might not and may need a little bit more kind of like reason as to why and all that type of thing. And that's fine. So ask the questions, ask and kind of look at things a little bit more. And obviously we can help you with that. So
And
um
not to like hype us up, but to hype us up, you're gonna get probably the most unbiased responses you're gonna get because
yeah,
we don't necessarily have players in the game. Like yes,
no,
Phoebe poses a bunch of these Olympians. I trained a bunch of the Olympians, but I'm not the like I want to see everyone do well because like I don't consistently train Jazzy. Like I've trained her a handful
no.
of times in person, but I'm not going to be biased towards her. I didn't see her
Hmm.
in third place. Like I didn't predict her higher than I thought. And so you're going to get the most unbiased standpoints from us when we don't necessarily have direct skin in the game.
Yeah. And I think that's needed sometimes, you know? So
Yeah.
I think yeah, so I'm happy with that. Was there anything else that you would say with the Olympia in general? With
No,
anything
I mean
else?
the flow of the Olympia this year was awesome. I loved how you didn't get to see, but they expanded the venue out. They added
It looks
a lot.
bigger.
They added a lot of space. Like there was a part where the stage was last year was like where the Raw booth was this year, and so they expanded another 300 feet past that to get to the stage, and it was cool.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
cool. I mean, I'm very glad because obviously they've just announced that they are still doing it in Vegas, which I'm
yes,
really happy about because obviously, me looking from afar, I was so jealous of everyone, but I'm gonna be there next year, hopefully. So all the gyms, the New Tech Gym, the Torture Gym, Dragon's Lair, all these gyms, it's so exciting to just as a whole, the whole weekend because of everything they have around it. So I was
yeah,
like, I really hope they keep it in Vegas because
yes,
that makes the Olympia as well.
yeah,
Like the Olympia
and
is so much more exciting when there's so much to do around it and
yeah,
it be like an experience, not just the stage aspect.
100%. I wasn't a huge fan of it in Orlando,
Neither
and
was I.
just my me personally speaking, I like everything on top of what there is to do in Vegas. Like when you get out of the Olympia, there's stuff to go do. But
Yeah.
the whole week leading up to it, the only other city might be Dallas,
Yeah.
where it can actually accommodate the amount of competitors. Like think of if we went to New York City or when it was in Orlando. There's not that many large scale bodybuilding specific gyms. And so
Mm.
you're talking what 400, 300 people in the total Olympia, plus spectators, plus coaches that are trying to go and mob all these gyms. Vegas can account for all of that.
Yeah.
They have 10 different good large scale gyms to go pick from that are all bodybuilder focused. And you're able to accommodate for everyone, plus the fans to still get in there and get a lift, take pictures with their people, like all that type of stuff. And going somewhere like Orlando, it was packed. Everywhere was packed. So
Yeah. I remember, I don't know what is it, was it Rebel Gym? Is that the one that
Rebel
the main
Gym
one?
and Rebel Gym and Kissimmee Muscle or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
They're there were a couple of those like main gyms that just could not accommodate it.
They were so busy. It was a it's a big gym in general. And even that was like, I could barely get on any equipment. And I was like, I'm actually like, I'm going to the Olympia and I need to train and I physically can't because you
Yeah,
can't get on anything because there's so many people. So I do think that that is helpful. That is such a large scale of gyms in actually the perimeter as well. Like instead of like, you'd have to drive God knows how far for anywhere in Florida. And then that takes the rest of the day, like the whole of your day up. And then you're also getting ready for the Olympia. You've got to go to the athletes meet. You've got to do other things. It just becomes a lot. So I was really, really hoping it was going to be in Vegas still. So I'm very glad to hear that it
yeah,
is for
I know. I love
2026.
that.
Did you want to go through the shows quickly for this
Yeah,
year?
let's do 10 minutes, like 5 minutes on each roster, just to touch on it and see because I love the I'm blanking on the name right now. The one in Florida this weekend is going to be a
Hurricane
good lineup. Yeah,
Pro.
Hurricane is a good lineup, really good.
Yeah.
You're getting a mini Olympia, so
It's there's a lot of like I didn't expect
Amy,
Amy to be doing it. And
yeah,
she is. And I
yeah,
think it's good that she is. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing that she isn't. Like, I think it's good that these girls are competing more consecutively. And she's probably hungry to get better. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So I think that it's very good that she is doing that. So you've got this is the full list, right? For Hungary.
This
Oh,
is
this is
this is
Hungary.
hungry. Yeah, we can do hungry
Where,
first.
yeah, so this is Hungary. So you've
Yeah.
got this is, I mean, this is a big list regardless for
It's a great
Hungary.
list. So a couple that stand out on here is, as I just said earlier, my biggest standout in the Olympia is Victoria from Hungary.
Yeah.
She
Mhm.
just got 15th. She's more than likely the front runner here. Loved her look. And then Lisa Reese from Germany. I trained
Yep.
Lisa. She didn't get to step on the Olympia stage because she got all the way to Vegas and the night before came down with like a crazy fever. And it would have just
Oh,
been unhealthy and dumb to get on the stage. So she took a step back and she's hopping in the Hungary Pro. So a little bit of redemption there. Same with Yulia doing the Florida show. So
mhm.
I like Lisa a lot in this lineup. Definitely a top five there. Probably pushing for a top three. Victoria is a big standout from the Olympia, so excited to see her up there.
Yeah, I think those are the main people that I kind of see as a standout, honestly. Jess Feeney, so I pose her. She's from Ireland and I pose her kind of a little bit into the Olympia. She in a lot of the European shows in recent times, so like last year and even a little bit this year, she's kind of been in that top six type, top five range. So I have no doubt she's probably going to be in nearish kind of that. I know she did. I can't remember where she got in the Olympia this year, but she did the Olympia as well this year.
Mm.
So she's usually one of the ones that I see kind of placing within Europe. So I'll be interested to kind of see what she looks like next to these girls and stuff
Yeah,
like that since she's done the Olympia and all that type of thing. So that's going to be interesting. Other names, I'm awful when it comes to names, so I can only really see faces. But
from
I
Greece,
think,
where is she? Rania. She has a very good physique as well. I think that's how you pronounce it. But she has a good
oh
physique as well.
yes,
I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name.
yeah.
But she has a great physique as well. So this will be this will be a really solid top five at this show. I'm excited to see the results from this one.
Yeah, I agree. And then you've got Mexico.
Yeah,
So this
Mexico,
is
where I feel
the
like Cass is probably the front runner here. I think she barely missed her qualification this year. She got like a second or a third a couple times,
yeah.
and she is always, no matter what show it is, she's always in that like second to fifth spot. She's always a contender for the win at most shows that she does. So I think she's the front runner here. I don't know who that Kerrigan Pike person is.
I was like, oh, who's that girl? The only one from the USA.
Yeah, so
So,
Kerrigan brought her absolute best she ever has to Southern Muscle a couple weeks ago and was told by the whole judging panel that your entire stage presence, like shape, everything looks so spot on in comparison to how you were before, but you came in came in too hard. She
okay,
was
fab.
she was walking back to the front and had quad striations going through, and
Yeah.
so that's typically an automatic, like you're not going to be in my top five.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
that's
that's what
fair.
happened. That's
That's
what happened
fair.
there. Yeah, yeah, very fair. And that was a great lineup in Southern Muscle as well. But
Hmm.
with the changes that I know her and James have made coming into this show, it's she's gonna push Cass like that. That should be a pretty solid. And no knock on anyone else here. I don't know some of these people, but to me, that's a pretty solid top two there. I train Courtney as well. She needs a little bit more density added to her physique over time. I just started with her about 8 weeks ago, but she has a very, very pleasing physique, like one of those crazy tight waist tapers. So
Mhm.
she could be in the mix for sure.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, that'll be, I'd be interested because I know Cass, and again, just speaking from what I know these girls look like, Cass and Kerrigan kind of pair very well together, like their
Very
physiques.
comparable.
Yeah. And I think, obviously, not to go back to the Olympia, Ashlyn and Maureen compared very well together when they were then put next to each other. And I think
Yeah,
it's really interesting when you find that two pair that just fit next to each other.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that's hopefully, fingers crossed, because I want obviously Kerrigan to do well and stuff like that as well. I think that will be a potential top
yeah,
two comparison, which would be cool to see. Very, very cool to see
yeah.
because obviously Cass, again, she's a very, very good athlete and stuff like that. So and
Yeah,
then
and Kerrigan, she chose to do this show like hours before the deadline because she's coaching a wellness pro that's in this show, and so she's like, if I'm going to go for her, why don't I just compete in it too? And
yeah.
based on her check-ins over the weekend, she was obviously in person with James at the Olympia doing in-person check-ins, and they were both pretty much like, we'd be stupid to not do a show with how ridiculously good you look right now. So
What did she do recently to her foot? That's one thing I wanted to know. Did she do
she
something
was
with her
in a
foot?
she was in a motorcycle course getting her license, and they were doing that thing where everyone's like in a row together riding, and the person in front of her went the wrong way, then stalled their bike, and so
Ugh.
Kerrigan had to make the choice of running this person over or ditching her bike, and so she jumped off the bike and it landed on her foot and pushed it into the ground, and it's that the talus is what broke, which is kind of the connector of the ankle and the foot, and
Yeah.
so that it was a fracture, and I mean, loads of BPC 157 and TV later, and everything's looking really good. She's posing in heels again with no
Oh,
pain.
that's
She
good.
said feels, yeah, she said it just feels like a little bit of a bruise. So she's in a
Okay,
good
that's
spot.
better. Because I know I saw
Yeah,
that obviously she mentioned that and I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? And yeah, I wanted to
yeah,
ask. Well, that again, you've seen so many. I think there is actually in this, so this is a Hurricane Pro. I don't know if anyone has obviously seen that amateur that broke her foot
yes.
before she
At North
won.
Americans,
Yes, she's
yeah,
competing at this. I want to say her name's Rachel. I think it's this one.
yeah.
I
She
think.
literally was on stage in a boot.
And she got a pro card. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's insane. And I think again, like props to Carrigan or props to, anyone that kind of, does that is you will kind of do what is necessary with it, like obviously being, careful
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
But I think it's the aim of the game. Like you've worked so hard to get here, like
yeah.
nothing's gonna stand your
And
way,
that was I also attest some of her feedback at that show to that because think of having to favor one leg, like one side, and being
Yeah.
told that your
Which
quads were
leg was
too
it?
hard and you were her planted foot, the one that she sits into,
She
which I
sits.
can't remember what one that is. The left.
Oh,
The left.
that's the worst.
Yeah, yeah. So think of having to walk back to the front and then plant and sit into that foot. And I think
That's gonna be
that's
so
where the
uncomfortable.
feedback came from because if she was 100% healthy, you can control that flexion more of your legs. But because she's having to like alter how she stands a little bit and alter how you sit into it, it's going to make the quads pop a bit more because you're putting so much pressure on it. So
Honestly,
I
though,
think
if
just
she'd not said anything, I would not have like. It wasn't awful. Like it wasn't like, oh my God, you could tell something's really, really
yeah,
wrong. Like from me not knowing at all. Like obviously you probably saw it because you knew back in the back of your head, like she's got a hurt foot. But when I watched her routine, I was like, she's great. Like you wouldn't know
yeah.
none the wiser could, and that's great. She powered through regardless, which is good. So
Yeah, yeah. So
excited for
I'm
her.
excited for Mexico because of that. Like knowing that they made the small changes they need to on top of being 100% healthy now, it's going to be a big game changer. So
Cool. Nice. And then this is the Hurricane. Yeah. So Massa obviously has been going for years to try and get that qualification. You've got then Yulia, who obviously didn't compete at the Olympia, was going to. Um,
hope
Hope is
Hope just got third place at Southern Muscle, and I think she got a second place this year as well. So she's
she's
sitting in
been
a good
quite
spot going
consistent
into
this year,
this.
hasn't
Yeah,
she?
very, very.
Kirsty is from the UK, big up UK. She is, I want to say this is her pro debut. She won a pro card last year. So this is her
Okay.
pro debut. And what I love about this, just to point it out, is that a lot more people from the UK now are traveling to the US, which I do really
Yeah.
like because, again, they're not scared to kind of go up and be like, right, I'm going to put myself like the Hurricane Pro, I would say, especially right after the Olympia, is kind of known for being one of the, well, it's usually, is it not usually before the, has it been before the Olympia before?
I'm not sure.
In 2023, it was because I did this show. I think it was the week before, and I did this show before. That's why,
Which would
or
make sense
two
because
weeks
the
before.
Olympia has been backed up a month every month
Yeah,
for the last like 3 years. So
yeah. So, and I like that people are now traveling to these big shows, and like we said before, not being afraid to kind of be up against these people that are the top of the top, and they want to improve. Like I love that, and I think
yeah,
has to happen more for the UK athletes to keep improving. They need to come to the US more and do more shows in Europe, and just do more and be out there. Not for any other reason than that, really, honestly. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, that's exciting. And then you got
And you
Amy.
have, yeah, whoever Amy is. I mean, like some Olympian, right?
Yeah. Not too sure who that
definitely
is.
definitely the front runner here for
Yeah.
sure. Couple people in here that can push her a bit. I think that if I mean, I'm skipping a lot on the list, but going down to Alice. Alice has a very comparable and competitive physique in really any lineup. Like we
Ari's
said,
not on
hope
here.
Ari is. Oh, she's not on here. No.
She was on here. I saw in her story that she said she's doing, because that's what I thought. I thought
Yeah, I
Ari
saw
could
it
be
too. Yeah,
potential person to be
to
comparable
push a
next to
bit.
Amy.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, because I think both of them have, very similar features, and I think there'd be a good comparison. I'm pretty sure she put it on her story that she is doing it. I don't know why she's not on the list, but again, it could just be like not updated or whatever. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think she's doing it. I'm like 90% sure she is. So I think she would be an interesting one to see next to Amy for sure.
Definitely.
Um, and then you got Rachel. I want to see that's her pro debut, which again, pointing out, I love that people who've just turned pro, because she turned pro what, like not that long ago, to then doing a pro show just because she's in shape,
Yeah,
she's lean.
yeah,
Just do it, get the feedback at those big shows, and then go into an off season. I see this all the time to girls. Like if you get your pro card and there's still a chance for you to do a show, if you feel like you want to and you can afford to and you feel like it's advisable, do a pro show, because
yeah,
it'd be silly for you to not just get that feedback straight away with the physique you currently have and then make the improvements. Because as much as they could say, oh, yeah, you need to grow, it's the same as what we were saying before about the judges and being like, oh, the judges could say, get a little bit leaner. You do get a little bit leaner, and that's not what they want. They could say the same thing about you, your pro card after you get it at a show. They could say, yeah, you need a little bit more size. And then you actually stand next to the girls, you'd be like, oh, actually, you don't need any more size, or you don't need to do this. And
yeah,
you wouldn't know that unless you stand next to them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's,
And that's a huge thing from pro qualifier to pro debut. I think you posed, or do you pose Ali Prince?
yes. Yes, I was
Yeah.
it.
So
Sorry,
she,
my brain just
yeah,
was
no, you're
like,
good.
wait.
So she turned. So I train her. Kyle Wilkes coaches her, and she turned pro back at Universe, and like a very dominant pro card, like hands down won that pro card. 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, goes into doing Tampa Pro, smallest girl in the show, and that was her
Yeah,
feedback. You need to grow everywhere. So it
yeah.
is very important in that aspect to like get on stage, do your pro debut so that you know what you need to do moving forward, because there is a big difference in delineation in overall structure and shape from turning pro to doing your pro debut.
100%. And to point out, Ali actually got sick for her first one, didn't she? Sixth
Mm-hmm.
place. And then
Yep.
the next show she won. Like,
Yeah.
so you getting sixth at potentially any other show or any show that you do, whether that be pro show, whether that be pro qualifier, or even a regional show, it can change a lot in what was that three? I think there was like 3 weeks in between that,
It
or
was
like maybe
it was
four.
June it was junior Nats to Universe, so it was 4 weeks, I think.
4 weeks, and she got a
Yeah.
pro card. Imagine if she got downbeat and was like, "Oh, I got sixth. Maybe I shouldn't do the show." She wouldn't be pro. So it's
Yeah.
like you need to,
Yep.
again, it's consistency. It's coming back, applying the
Consistency.
feedback you
Keep
need
going.
to, and go 100%.
Yep.
So yeah, I think Amy's gonna be good. That'd be cool to see Rachel her pro debut. I am not sure about
I'm
these
not
names.
sure who. I don't know who Alyssa and Claudia are. I don't know them.
No, it'd be interesting to see. We can kind of have a look at them after the results and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Brittany Hamilton has
Brittany,
been,
Brittany's been killing it this year. She
yeah.
came out her first show of the year, and I think got eighth. Just missed the first call out, and then ever since then has been a consistent top five every show. She's definitely on an upward trajectory right now, and I'm happy that her and Drew haven't shut it down yet, because
Yeah.
like when I see her check-ins and when I see where she's at, and like just the recent shows she's doing, I'm like, she's getting better and better. Like, why stop now? Like, go rack up some points, go push for a win. Like, you're on an upward trajectory, so keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's just the consistency aspects of things. Christina Bolina, she came in,
Yep.
she's from Spain. She has come back. She had quite a bit of time off because I used to compete with her back in 2018, 2019 when we both used to compete in Europe together. And she has done really well. I think her first show I can't remember exactly where the placing was. It was in Spain. And then I think she came to America and I think she won two shows. She did
Sure did.
Texas. I can't remember for the life of me what the other one was, but she won two shows,
This
the
year,
two American shows
it was Rising Phoenix.
as well. So because she got two, because she
Yeah,
got Texas and then she got Rising Phoenix. Yes. So
yeah.
she did really well. So I actually think, I mean, she could also, again, if she, because obviously did the Olympia recently. I can't remember what placing she got, but this is what I'm actually kind of excited to see. I don't know what call out she got, but I'm interested to see, okay, will she be pushing Amy or
Yeah.
Ari?
I'm
Because there's a smaller show now. It's a smaller show now. So these girls are going to be seen next to each other a little bit more frequently. So
and
will they be pushing?
this also goes right back to what we said about the Olympia and the difference in how muscle and conditioning is different for each person's bikini criteria. Because when
Yeah.
you look at Masa and Chris, you have like larger frames, more muscular, like way more dense. And then you
Hmm.
go down to Hope Caselli, who's like petite and just very shapely petite, not the biggest girl on stage by any means. And then you have Amy, and then you have Alice. You have the most opposite physiques that will probably
Yeah.
be in this top 5 to 6, like the most opposite looking structures and physiques. And they will more than likely all be in that top 6 to 7 range. And that's just bikini for you. So
I'm really excited to see this because this is now you kind of said that. I'm like, oh yeah, because all these people like Brittany, I'm not too sure if she's been seen next to Amy before. Like, oh, I think she might have, but she has.
last year was the one that went like crazy viral. Was when they both did a Wasatch together, and they were 1 and 2 comparison, and
Oh,
they posed the hell out of them. So that was a year and a half
okay.
ago. So not too comparable to now. But that was a long comparison where some people were like, Brittany could have won that, and just came down to
Yeah.
Amy having overall better flow and just like being better that day. But very comparable. So getting Brittany back up there against Amy will be awesome. Throw Alice in the mix as well, where
Yeah.
Alice is coming off of, I think, 1 or 2 wins this year, and then a
Yeah.
few second and third places. So she's
Because
sitting
if
in a
she
great
wins
spot going
this,
in.
if she
Yeah,
wins
yeah,
this, then obviously she's got her qualification for next year. So that
yeah,
then helps her, moving forward. So I'm interested to see this. I think this would be really, really good lineup, to be fair, to kind of see as a whole. Again, like I said, because you've seen, because I know I recognize this name as well. I think I I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm really sorry. I'm really bad with
yeah.
when it comes to names and stuff like that. But I
When we're
think,
not on for when we're doing this, when some of our future episodes are just about an upcoming show, we'll have more time to like pull up their
yeah,
Instagrams. But right now,
100%.
not today.
Yeah, I'm like, we're 2 hours deep. I'm sure everyone would love to hear 3 hours of a podcast, but I'm like, it's my bedtime right now. So,
Yeah,
but I think she was in the Olympia. Again, I'm not too sure where she placed, but I think it would be really cool to see again, what does she look like then next to Amy? Like,
yep,
so I'm interested. I think it's going to be a good one to kind of see as a whole. So,
yeah.
yeah, what great podcast.
That was good. That was a good
We
first
had
one for
a
sure.
we had a lot to say, and again, this is why I think we wanted to do this, and I think when we kind of been talking about it, and just over the last like week or so, it's just been a case of like we have the same opinions. I'm sure we'll disagree at some point, which will be again interesting because again, I'd love to like then battle it out and see why, but that's why this podcast I think is going to be great because we can actually like discuss so many different things. So very
Yeah,
excited.
and
So
in the future, being able to bring like an Amy on, or someone that might be a front
yeah,
runner for a show that's coming up, and get their mindset going into it. And some people, like, there's not a lot of shows out there, podcasts, media pages that are doing one-on-ones like Fuad does with Bro Chat. where
Yeah.
the entire week into the Olympia, he brought on like 7 different Olympians and did one-on-ones with them and had his whole crew on talking to them and got them involved in what their mindset is and how they feel going into the show. So I feel like doing that going into even just regular pro shows when it's like a stacked lineup like Hurricane will be fun to do.
Yeah, 100%. I'm definitely down for that. And comment down below to anyone obviously listening on YouTube, who would you want to see on? Because that would be also interesting as well. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. This has been great. And I'm very, very excited for bringing more episodes. I don't know what our next episode is going to be, but we're going to kind of discuss that and then kind of go from that. I think we're going to try and upload every Thursday from now on. So if there is any specific that anyone does want us to run through and go through any questions, all that type of thing, please comment down below. That's always the main thing is like, we want to be able to explain what you guys either don't understand or want to hear more from. That's the whole point of this podcast. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we see you
Thanks,
in the
everyone.
next one.